So, welcome everybody to Root Cause Reset. Today, Bobby and I are going to talk about why parasite cleansing around the full moon makes a lot of sense. So, we'd love to know in the comments, where you're watching this from. If you're watching the replay, if you're watching live, if you can remember, we are streaming live from Zoom. And so it's hard for us to see your comments. So we will reply to comments later today when we're off the Zoom. So if you have comments or questions, please feel free to jot them in. Just a quick introduction. My name is Heather, Heather Sunderland from Health Coaching by Heather. Bobby and I are co-founders of Navigating Mold and SIRS, a course on mold toxicity and chronic inflammatory response syndrome. We both specialize in helping people recover from complex illnesses like mold toxicity, Lyme disease, and SIRS, and we both use a regenerative approach. I'm going to let Bobby share a little bit about herself.
Hello. Heather said, I'm Bobby McGrath. I'm a certified regenerative health practitioner and detox specialist, and I work with clients who have chronic conditions like gut issues, mold toxicity, SIRS, and a whole lot of other things. Nervous system regulation is my specialty, and helping with just working on the gut and getting it cleaned up so that your body can do what it's designed to do. And Heather and I were talking the other day just a little bit about why we do this work. And we just really feel super strong that we have had difficult journeys ourselves. And by reaching back to those people that potentially have been marginalized, not seen or heard, maybe they've gone to the doctor or multiple doctors multiple times and they just aren't getting anywhere. And that doctor looks at them in their own scope and misses a lot of things. And that's what's great about what Heather and I can do for our clientele is to be able to take the information that you can provide to us as your symptoms and your struggles and start to weave together a plan that can help you get to the bottom of what your root cause is. So that's one of the reasons we put these lives together is to bring information to people because then they can understand where they need to go. So that's our why. And I will let Heather tell you a little bit about her why.
Thanks, Bobby. Yeah, definitely. Both of us had mold toxicity and SIRS and Lyme. And we want to help people get well quicker than we did and find the root cause. And we want to give people hope that they can get well, no matter how long you've been sick. I was sick 28 years. If I can get well, trust me, anybody can. So we want people to get well and understand sort of how the body works and the things that need to be addressed. And there's so many things that definitely get missed in the traditional world of medicine and even in the conventional world of medicine. And we're trying to hit on a lot of those topics that we see in the root cause reset.
So one of the things we wanted to talk to you about today, as far as getting started with what the heck, our title is, why parasite cleanse around the full moon, and I want you to think back to around the middle of the month. The 14th of November was the big super moon, they call it. It's actually it was called the beaver moon or the hunter moon because a lot of hunting goes on at this time of the year, but it was one of the moons that was the closest, one of the closer moons to the Earth. And so a lot of things went on during that time. And if that's not something you're aware of, you are after this live today, you'll be a lot more aware of how the moon can impact your health and the fact that you potentially have a high parasite load. But I don't know about you, but a few weeks ago when we had the full moon, there was just a lot of energy in the world and a lot of people kind of freaking out and a lot of emotions. And I know I personally was having that. I have a lot of chronic grief that I'm working on trying to get rid of. And there was just a lot of up and down emotional, tearful days where it was like, what's going on with me? And I did tie it to the moon. So I knew about it and I knew that I needed support for that. Because a lot of people don't understand that there are, and we're going to go into it, so you don't have to wait too long to figure this out, but we're going to go into why the full moon is an important time to do parasite cleansing and what actually happens physically in our body with it. So if you think back to the full moon a few weeks ago and maybe think about people you know or yourself maybe had a really rough time, that will give you some clues.
Yeah, yeah. Around the full moon, my body tends to release parasites without me even doing a parasite cleanse. And that last big full moon, I had like 7 days of parasites in the toilet. It was pretty crazy. Good to see them leaving, but pretty crazy to see them. And just keep in mind, all of us who have chronic illnesses, we have parasites, and we tend to have higher loads of parasites, and especially in the world of mold toxicity on Lyme disease and SIRS people have higher parasitic loads, and it's often a very overlooked root cause that keeps people stuck. So, we're going to get into why parasite cleanse around the full moon makes so much sense. And please hang in till the very end because we're going to talk about some of our favorite products to prepare your body for a cleanse. You have to prepare the body before you start killing. So we'll get into that a little later. But parasites tend to be more active during the full moon. And we think this may be because they're just more metabolically and reproductively active around the time that the moon is full. So it makes it a really good time to cleanse because they're going to be more active, they're going to be out and about, and they're easy to kill around the full moon. And if you may experience if you have parasites around the full moon, and when I say around the full moon, I mean 7 day up to 7 days before and 3 days after the moon, you may have digestive symptoms that could be a grumbling tummy, diarrhea, gas, bloating, a feeling of fullness. Some people even tell me I feel something moving, and sometimes it's not in the gut. Parasites can be anywhere in the body. They're not just in the digestive tract. You may have sleep that's much worse. I always got insomnia with the full moon until my parasite load got pretty low. Some people will just have a restless night. Others will wake up between 2 and 4 a.m. in the morning. Some people will have vivid dreams or trouble falling asleep. You can have increased anxiety or irritability. I see that a lot, the increased anxiety around the full moon. Patients will be messaging me, and I will remind them that the full moon is coming, and they usually get much better after the full moon has passed because parasite activity is not as active. People can have intense sugar cravings. My husband, every full moon, it sort of reminds me when the full moon is, he'll go to the store and pick up junk food, which we never have in the house. But that's my cue that he needs a parasite cleanse and that the full moon is coming. Some people, rashes get much worse with increased parasite activity. I had a lot of neuropathy with the full moon, and with increased parasite activity, you're going to have increased inflammation. So, even in a household of people who might have parasites or be dealing with mold or Lyme or SIRS, the symptoms can be different. My husband and I had very different symptoms, and Bobby and I have very different symptoms around the full moon.
Definitely. I was actually talking to a friend of mine who has quite a few grandchildren, and one of them in particular, fortunately, they had taken to the doctor. They use a holistic doctor, and they said that, he probably needs a parasite cleanse. He was getting up at night, in the night. He's a young little guy, 5, 6 years old, in the night eating, going to the refrigerator in the pantry and trying to find food and eat. So very late at night. So they knew right away, like, this is not normal. So what I want to tell you a little bit about is a little dance that goes on inside our body with the hormones as the full moon is coming towards us and as it's passing by. Melatonin is a hormone that our body makes, and serotonin is also a hormone that our body makes. And melatonin, if you've ever heard about that, it supports your sleeping. It's also an anti-inflammatory. It's actually made by serotonin. It's a precursor. You need to have serotonin to have melatonin. What happens during the full moon phase as the full moon's ramping up? So then, let's say the full moon is going to be this Thursday. We would be in a ramp up of light where the full moon is actually getting larger. And that is actually suppressing our melatonin production. any type of light. That's why Heather and I both say, if for sleep, helping your sleep, you want to be sleeping in a dark room, not a room that has little, no window shades, but a room that has dark shades, because light is going to impact your circadian rhythm and your melatonin production. So during the full moon phases, as it's coming, melatonin decreases and serotonin increases, which is your happy hormone, which you might think, oh, well, I would get happier during the full moon. But surprisingly, people get much less sleep because of the fact that the melatonin is going down. So you're going to have potentially a downregulated immune system. You could have, as Heather already described, sleep issues, restlessness, waking, and parasites actually love to eat serotonin. It's one of their favorite things to do. And during the time of the full moon is when they are most active and they're reproducing as well. So they're going to go find more melatonin or more serotonin. So because the fact that melatonin is decreasing because of the light that the moon's putting out, the serotonin is actually going up in your body. And what happens is the gut is where 70% of your serotonin is created. So the parasites that are systemic, meaning not in your gut, so your brain, your organs, in your skin, they will journey to your intestinal lining area because they know that that's where they can get the most bang for their buck or the best smorgasbord, you could say, available for them to get more serotonin. So they're a survival kind of thing. They're going to do anything they can possibly do to survive. So we've got this balance with melatonin going down, serotonin going up. Then we've got this extra energy or really irritability or just this kind of energy in the body that the body doesn't necessarily know what to do with. It's not sleeping well, and now it's hyperactive. And that creates all of the different mental stress, outbursts, crying, mood swings, food cravings, and things like that. So, what I want you to understand is that this is a biological thing going on in your body. And that's why cleansing during the full moon is so impactful, because if we can get at the parasites that are all over the body because they're coming to the gut lining and going through the parasite cleanse that Heather and I have used, that's when you can get the most bang for your buck with that. And historically, if you go back in time and maybe were to talk to your great great grandparents, they actually put into their lifestyle parasite cleansing of people and their animals. If they owned a farm, they would do specific things. There were specific things they would add into their diet at different times of the year to help them parasite cleanse. And that is actually a lost art that no longer really takes place for everyone. And unfortunately, that requires us to have to parasite cleanse intentionally for our own self because of that. So Heather's going to talk to you a little bit about some symptoms that can flare during the full moon, just so you have those on your radar as we're moving through the rest of this.
Yeah, I mean, I actually think I hit on the symptoms, but that is what I sort of labeled. But I want to remind you, like any of you who are dealing with mold toxicity, SIRS, Lyme, if you've got mast cell activation, histamine intolerance, you've already have chronic GI issues, you've got PANS or PANDAS. Um, I see clients flare around the full moon all the time with some of the symptoms we mentioned before, the GI symptoms, the insomnia, it could be neuropathy, you could have increased pain, increased anxiety. So you may want to put on your calendar, and we're going to give you the dates a little bit later of some upcoming full moons. That when the full moon is coming, and sort of like mark out like 7 days before and monitor some of your symptoms and see if they get worse. That's really going to be a cue that your body really needs to do some parasite cleansing. And sadly, it's not just one cleanse. We need to do this multiple times, especially those of us who have these chronic illnesses. We tend to have really high parasite loads. So you're not going to do one parasite cleanse and be done. It just doesn't work that way, sadly. Um, but monitor if your symptoms spike around that full moon. Some people even get symptoms around the new moon, but for me, it was always the full moon. But this is why, as Bobby said, protocols are intentionally done and pulsed around the full moon because we're going to get the biggest bang for our buck to be killing off these parasites. So we're going to talk a little bit about how in the world do we get these parasites? Because a lot of people think, oh, well, I don't have any parasites. But I want to tell you, if you're alive and breathing, you have a pulse, you have parasites, and you don't have just one. And we don't have to go to a third world country or a foreign country to get parasites. It's very easy to pick up parasites from food, contaminated food. And we could do a whole class on where parasites could come from, but we're just going to give you some highlights, but especially things like raw seafood, raw shrimp, and pork. Shrimp and pork and raw seafood, very high in parasites. Water can be contaminated with parasites. Some of you know I was sick over the summer and I had Giardia, which is a nasty parasite infection that often comes from contaminated water. I don't know where I got it from, but it was probably contaminated water, contaminated food, or poor hygiene that somebody used that made me very ill for a very long time. International travel, people can pick up parasites and gardening or soil, being barefoot, walking barefoot, there can be parasites in the soil that can go into your skin. So it's a little weird when we think about it, but we are being exposed. And those of us who are already sick and chronically ill and our immune systems are suppressed, this is something we really need to address.
We also need to remember too that our pets are definitely a source of parasites, and a lot of people parasite cleanse their pets. It's heartworm is a big one. They give a heartworm pill every month and things like that. But I will tell you, it's not a fail-proof system. I give my dog a heartworm pill every month to protect her, and I'm actually went this week and got her a little checkup, and the doctor came running out the door after we left and paid and left. She's like, "Oh, just want you to know, in the stool test, it showed up she had anaplasma. She said her system, her nervous or her immune system's taking care of it, but you need to just be aware of it because we had talked quite a bit about parasite cleansing and my dog, what signs we see when she needs a deeper cleanse and things like that. So, um, you can get them from your pets, unfortunately, and they share them. And I know we love our fur babies, but sleeping with them in your bed is the number one way to get parasites from your pet. Letting them lick you. Also, if they're coughing, they're also going to be exposing you to some of the larvae or the eggs that the parasite are laying inside their lungs, and they can cough and you can breathe it in, and there you go. That's how you get it too. It doesn't have to be that you let them lick you or things like that. And there's a whole life cycle of parasites. And like Heather said, we have to cleanse multiple times because not only do we have to get the physical parasites, but we also have to get the eggs that they lay as they're leaving the building, and cleaning up, the waste that they're also leaving in us, which can make us sick. So making sure that you have good hygiene when you're walking your dog, making sure you take your shoes off when you come in from outside. We wash our dog's paws because they step all over everything. And so who knows what they're bringing into the house. Um, if you can clean up just that area, if you have a pet, that might be a really great way for you to lower your own personal parasite load. Person to person, obviously, you can get parasites from your own partner and improperly cleaning of your surfaces at home. So if you're cooking or you're using raw meat or vegetables and things like that, you really do need to clean your surfaces well. And it doesn't mean you have to blast them with bleach. You just need to clean them with soap and water is fine. And your cutting boards and things like that. And then, as Heather mentioned, individuals with immune dysfunction of any kind, whether it's autoimmune, mold, Lyme, SIRS, your front door is open. It's more open than somebody who doesn't have that issue, which means that your gut, which is our first line of defense really to what's coming in from the outside, is going to be a lot more fragile and it's going to let things in that we don't want to have in. So we work on the gut, we prepare the gut, we heal the gut, and we cleanse the gut. And there's a whole process to doing that. And that's part of it is parasite cleansing. So we want you to understand that if you are struggling with those types of conditions that she mentioned earlier, you're going to be more susceptible to parasites. So parasite cleansing isn't really, oh, an option. It's actually something you have to do on a regular basis.
It's a really good point. And I just want to mention, like when we're sick with Lyme, mold, SIRS, autoimmune diseases, we're toxic. We're more inflamed. Our body's more acidic, and those are environments that pathogens love and parasites love. And so as we bring down that parasite load in your body, we're bringing down inflammation. We're bringing down toxicity because parasites, we talked about in our previous live, they do serve a purpose. They mop up, heavy metals and toxins. So they do serve a purpose. But when we kill them, they release those things. Um, so as that load comes down in the body, I mean, you're going to see some improvement in your health. You're going to see chronic inflammation improve. But with those of you with, Lyme mold, SIRS, nervous system dysregulation, your symptoms are going to show up so much more strongly with these pathogens and parasites. And your body's going to have a harder time keeping them in check until we start to get those loads lower in the body.
Definitely. So Heather mentioned earlier the next full moon or um, putting it on your calendar. The next full moon is actually a week from Thanksgiving, so December 4th. And I think it would be awesome. She brought up a point. We both think it would be great if you could track in this next week or so what your symptoms are between the next, what would that be, 14 days, 13, 14 days, to see if you are struggling with parasites. And that doesn't, there's plenty of ways to figure it out, but that's one of the best ways is if you have stinky sleep before the few days before December 4th, and you're kind of in a wonky mood, you're maybe craving things you normally don't, things like that, or you're just irritated. I know when, and this is just TMI probably, I know when I have released parasites or I'm going to before the parasite is released, my body shakes. It literally vibrates. And there's just this feeling of like, what is going on? And I kind of not really sure where it's coming from because I'm not activated or upset about things. And then I start to realize, you know what? I am doing a parasite cleanse. I am taking, especially the Para 3, some of the products that we're going to talk to you about, and it's working. And it's amazing. As soon as you pass the parasite, those feelings subside. And I remember the first time that happened, probably 4 years ago, I was just blown away. I couldn't believe it. So mark your calendar, December 4th, and then January 3rd. That will be the next one after December. So you have time to actually do some prep work, which is important. As Heather mentioned earlier, we can't flush a clogged toilet. We can't empty a bathtub with the plug in it. So you got to do some prep work before you go in and try to do some parasite removal. And we're going to talk to you a little bit about how that works. And Heather's going to talk to you about something pretty cool called the drainage funnel.
Before I talk about the drainage funnel, I just wanted to mention, like, to me, this seems really interesting that the full moon is coming right between Christmas, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, right? The time that we tend to eat a lot of unhealthy food, a lot of sweets, and those things are just going to feed these parasites. And if you're craving those sweets and you don't have a lot of control when you're at your Thanksgiving meal and you're going for three helpings of dessert, like that's really a sign that your body needs a parasite cleanse. I have some friends who like I used to crave sweets. I crave sweets unbelievably. We didn't have them in our home, but if I went to people's homes who had them, like I wanted dessert first. I wanted the candy in the candy jar, and I had no control as to how much I would have. And now it's like it's so easy for me to just, if I want a sweet, I'm not usually craving it. I just will have like one cookie if I'm at a party, and I'm good. And that helps me to know that I've really brought down my parasite load as well. So just be thinking about that. If you're craving sweets and you don't have a lot of control and you're feeling like guilty, it's the parasites that are craving for you to feed them. And so as you get that load down in the body, it is easier to make healthy choices. So that's a side that I just had to throw in there. Let me pull up, let me share screen and pull up this picture real quick of this. It's not giving me the choice of the screen I want. Let me just open up the picture I had. and see now if I can share the screen with you guys, but wanted to show this picture to you of the drainage funnel. So we don't want to be going in and killing parasites until, like Bobby talked about, we need to have the drain opened. And so you can see that funnel, and the drain starts with our bowels or our colon. If you are not having a bowel movement every day and you go in and start killing parasites, the die off of the chemicals and things the parasites release are going to be creating symptoms for you. And so we have to be having a bowel movement once a day, and hopefully eventually, that increases to, every time you have a meal, you're having a bowel movement, maybe not right after the meal, but you're having 3 meals a day, you should be having three movements a day. And as you can see, after the colon's moving, we want the liver and bile flowing, we want the lymphatic system flowing, we want organs and tissues moving, we want the cells supported, lungs, kidneys, skin, all these are all drainage pathways, and we need to assess, how your pathways are flowing on the journey. And so I'm going to talk about that first pathway, the bowels. The bowels are so critical to be moving first and foremost. So if your bowels aren't moving and you need a little support, Bobby and I have some favorite products that we use from Cellcore. We are Cellcore practitioners, and if you guys, want more information on Cellcore, you can reach out to us. We have an account together for Cellcore, and bowel mover is what I use to get my bowels moving. Are there other options? Of course. This has been my favorite and her favorite. And this is just really easy to take. I have not found it, uh, to stop my bowels from going regularly. This is helpful. I don't find it addictive. That's the word I was looking for. Um, and you can taper it to what you need. When I'm on a lot of binder, I sometimes need a little bit more of this because binders can be really, really constipating.
You mentioned in the drainage funnel, kidney and liver, and it's of course pretty cool because they just keep it simple. KL support. You could keep it kidney and liver, kidney and liver support. So they don't mess around with all these fancy names. And what's nice about the kidney and the liver is the kidney has to be open and flowing in order for the lymphatic waste to be moving out of your body. A third of your lymphatic waste goes through your bladder and a third goes through your bowels. And so if your bowels are backed up and your kidneys have a lot of plaque in them or calcium deposits, especially if you get kidney stones, um, this is something that you would want to be working with because it's going to help break down those metabolic pieces. And it's also going to help clear up the fatty liver in that a lot of people carry a lot of fat on their liver. And when you have a fatty liver, whether it's alcohol related or not, your your liver cannot do what it needs to do, which is filter everything that's coming through. It's like the biggest coffee filter you can imagine in your body. So KL Support is a great product for that. I use it all the time because of the fact that Heather and I are, although we are still detoxing a lot of things because we spent many, many, many years building up our backpack of accumulated toxins. So I support my kidney and liver with the kale support.
Yeah, and I want to mention if anybody has pain on their kidneys, right, that's a sign that you need some kidney support. I get that a lot from clients. They're like, oh, my kidneys hurt, or I have pain in my low back. And a lot of times, something like kale support will take care of that very, very quickly. As Bobby said,
Just
the
to jump
lymphatic system.
just to jump onto that before we go move on, Heather, sciatica. A lot of people have sciatica, and sometimes they go to the chiropractor and get adjustments and they do all the things. And it turns out that there's a some people have an enlarged kidney or an inflamed kidney, and that just the inflammation in the kidney from being blocked and not flowing can actually put pressure on that nerve that can actually end up being sciatica pain, which when I found that out, I was pretty much blown away. I was like, wow, that's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Well, the lymphatic system, as you've probably heard us talk in previous talks, is the sewer system of the body. And so important for the lymphatic system to be flowing. And when we're inflamed and have Lyme, mold, SIRS, autoimmune disease, our lymphatic system is almost always congested. And once you start cleansing, that lymph has to be moving because that lymph, a third of it, I think Bobby said, it flows into the kidneys, a third goes to the bowels. So if that lymph isn't flowing, like people tend to get like skin rashes and symptoms, heaviness in their legs and pain. So Cellcore makes this herbal support called Lymph Active. I've needed a lot on my journey. There's a lot you can do for the lymph. I had to do a lot of things along with the Lymph Active because I was sick for a long time and so much was moving out. But this is just the strongest lymphatic support I've ever found. I use other supports with clients, um, but but when you need strong support, this is where I go, is Lymph Active.
And then you also need to have energy. So if you've ever heard about ATP, you probably learned about it in chemistry or biology in high school. ATP is the currency that our body runs on. It's the energy, and mitochondria are the things that are making the ATP. And if we have a mitochondria illness, like a chronic inflammatory response or an autoimmune issue, your mitochondria can be downregulated, they can be damaged, they can just be asleep. And so what BCATP does is it goes in and it helps your body have more energy to actually do the detox work. So that is something that I often share with people, and you can tell when somebody's going through a really rough time and they're doing, let's say, their protocol and they're tired and they're worn out and they start to fade. That is a mitochondria issue. That's an energy issue. And it's also an energy issue when someone has depression, when someone's going through so much grief or struggling with just motivation to get up out of bed and things like that. There's a piece in there that energy is a part of that. So I'm excited, and Heather is that SoCore has this piece in their um, toolkit because we don't want people just pushing, 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 stripping, 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 detoxing, binding. We need to give them the energy to do it. So that's what
Yeah.
SoCore does.
Yeah, and I want to mention, like Bobby, you've been taking BCATP most of the journey where I didn't. And I feel like I'm paying the price now at the end where my mitochondria is needing, and so is my husband's, we're needing a lot of extra support. And I think if we had been doing it earlier on, I don't think we would be needing, as much support as we're needing right now at the end to help. Part of healing is helping the mitochondria repair. And that's sort of the phase that my husband and I are in. But I wish I had used it a little bit earlier on in the journey. So, if you have an interest in learning more about parasite cleansing, because, right, lots of different options how to cleanse, but as we said, we need to prepare the body before we even start a cleanse and open this drainage funnel and make sure the pathways are supported properly. So, if you're interested in a parasite cleanse as a group in the new year, drop the word cleanse in the comments and we'll reach out to you. But we would love to do a group cleanse, but we want to see that there's an interest before we create something. And if you want individualized support, you don't want to try to figure this out yourself, reach out to us, send us a DM. We are so happy to come alongside you. Bobby and I've lost count of how many parasite cleanses we both have done. And we're both super, super knowledgeable and, are excited to come alongside you. We appreciate you watching our live, watching our replay. Share this with somebody who you think would benefit learning a little bit more about parasites and opening up the drainage funnel before you parasite cleanse. And we want to wish all of you just a very, very lovely Thanksgiving. Try to make some healthy choices while you enjoy some proper portions of things that are yummy. And we will see you again soon.
Yes, and have a great Thanksgiving. Thanks for joining us. And just remember, the parasites get into our nervous system as well. And so they can make, I was telling Heather, I had a discovery call and she was all on board and everything, and the parasites got to her and she ghosted me and disappeared. And that is very normal for somebody who has a high parasite load to be excited about getting cleaned up and then all of a sudden do a 180 and run the other way. That totally means that you are parasitic and need support. So hopefully this week is a great time for you to do some reflection. And next week, when the full moon's coming along our way, you can do some reflection without judgment. And thanks for joining us on Root Cause Reset. We will look forward to seeing you sometime soon.